Hey guys, it's Reagan and today I'm filming my February wrap-up. In the month of February, I read a lot. Like, seriously, for a shorter month and what I've had to do this month, I am so impressed with myself and I'm not afraid to admit that. But yeah, I read 7 books in the month of February, so let's just go ahead and get started. The first book I completed is actually a novella, and that is The Slow Regard of Silent Things by Patrick Rothfuss. This is 2.5 in the Kingkiller Chronicles, or the first book being The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, one of my all-time favorite fantasy series at this point. This is a quirky little novella that literally in the beginning of it, Patrick Rothfuss tells you that you're probably not gonna like it. That being said, I did really like it because I kind of knew what I was getting into. This is a novella following one of the side characters, Ari, who has a lot of issues. She's a very peculiar person, and we kind of follow a week in her life as she kind of lives and goes through something called the Underthing. And personally, I really like this book. I really am interested in that area of the world, and we haven't been able to explore it, so to see it through her eyes was super interesting. But at the same time, because we had it through her eyes, I learned kind of nothing. I kind of had to deduce kind of what was going on, which is fine, but I definitely wanted some more. That being said, I thought this was beautifully written as always, very interesting. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It's nowhere as good as The Name of the Wind, but at the same time it's not trying to be. Just an interesting little story that kind of fleshes out the world a little bit more, which is why I liked it, so yeah. The next book I read this month was Persuasion by Jane Austen. This is the first classic I've picked up in a while, and this novel is about a woman who was basically in love with a man when she was much younger, around the years 20 years old or something, but her family, being very pretentious and very obsessed with their rank and stuff, told her he wasn't good enough for her, she wasn't allowed to marry him, and some 8 years later, her family has lost a lot of money and a lot of prestige, and the man that she turned down to marry, who she was in love with, is now really wealthy, and he comes back in town and it's just all sorts of drama. This book I thought was super entertaining. I really loved the family dynamics. Her family was ridiculous. Like, they were so haughty and like pompous, and it was kind of amazing. It kind of made me think of like the Real Housewives of the 18th century. That's kind of what I thought about when I read this book. But it was really good. I really want to watch the BBC classic of this movie. I'm interested. I didn't like it as much as Pride and Prejudice, but I really did enjoy the ride, and I'm excited to pick up some more Jane Austen works in the near future. It was fun. The next novel I read was Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson. This is a memoir by Jenny Lawson. It is called A Funny Book About Horrible Things. In this novel, Jenny Lawson, who's famous for being an online blog writer, in this novel she kind of explores and tells a whole bunch of stories that are kind of surrounding her mental health issues. She deals with severe depression, anxiety, and things along those lines. She has quite a lot of issues, and she's not afraid to talk about them, which I found to be very honorable. Not to mention, this book is extremely relatable in a lot of ways because she kind of just has this picture and this attitude of, yeah, no one's perfect, and we just need to all admit it. Like, we all are struggling with invisible issues that people just don't want to talk about. And that's why this book was extremely relatable. As someone who doesn't deal with dilapidating anxiety like she does, I do deal with day-to-day anxiety in my life, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. And so this book was extremely funny and super insightful in a lot of ways, and I just really appreciate it as a whole. Jenny Lawson just seems like a really funny and wonderful person. I ended up giving this book a 4.25, 4 stars. I really liked it. Some parts I did like more than others, but overall I thought it was so funny. Like, I almost wish I listened to the audiobook of this instead of just reading it, which I think I'm gonna do for her other book that she has out, which I'm definitely wanting to read soon. Let's pretend this never happened, so yes. Next up was a reread, and that was Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Yeah, I read this whole thing this month. This 900-page beauty was fantastic. Basically, when they officially announced that they were going to be releasing The Cursed Child this summer, I was like, right, I need to get on my reread, man. So I did. I read the 5th one this month. I immediately wanted to read the 6th book this month as well, but I'm telling myself to pace myself one each month, you know, for the next 3 months or so, and I might start back over again, who knows. But obviously I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I love this. The 5th Harry Potter book for a long time was actually my favorite. There's something about angsty Harry that just kind of makes me excited. I have to say, the romance between him and Cho Chang is like one of the most uncomfortable things in the entire world. But that's a story for another day. But yeah, I totally loved reading this. I loved seeing Luna and Neville and all Hermione and Ron and everyone. I was just like a smiling fool. It's just, there's something about rereading Harry Potter that just makes me inherently super happy. So I was glad that I took some time this month to reread this guy. I really enjoyed it. This book I read, it was sent to me for review at Source Books, who I'm working with this month, and that is This Is Where It Ends by Marike Ninschkamp, and this is a novel surrounding a school shooting. Basically, this novel has 4 different unique perspectives and takes place over a span of 54 minutes during a school shooting. This book, I feel, just even before I read it, was going to be a really important novel. Especially in America, gun violence is a very prevalent and important topic, especially gun violence in schools. It seems like we have an endless amount of school shootings, and as a student, it is disturbing and terrifying. When I first started reading this book, there was a real fear that I felt throughout the entire thing. I constantly felt, I felt edgy, and I felt this unease because everything I was reading obviously was fictional, but in so many ways felt really real, and because of that I just feel like people need to read this book because it kind of just reminds us of, puts us in that mindset of just what this book is about, which is about a school shooting, and it's just really scary. Obviously, I don't think this book was perfect. I think it dealt with a lot of issues really well. I thought the 4 perspectives were super interesting. I think it struggled with length. I think some of the characters could have been better expanded on. But what this book did really successfully is just being able to create that unease and that terror within its audience. At least it did for me. The whole time, I couldn't put it down, but I was also extremely uncomfortable the entire time because it just felt really real. That being said, I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I thought it was really good, and if it interests you, I definitely recommend picking it up. The next book I read was the Proustopia Book Club Pick of the Month, and for the month of February, we are working with Ray Ragnar, and that book we read was Curse of the Sphinx. Just so you know, our live show is this Friday, March 4th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, so be there, be square. I also have a full review of this novel, which I'll leave down below, but this is a paranormal novel that integrates elements of Greek mythology. This follows our main character, Hope, and for her whole life, she has been running with her mother from town to town. They never stay places very long because her mom says they have to keep moving on. And Hope and her mother live in a world where Greek mythology is kind of real. Basically, everyone in the world is aware of the gods' existence as well as demigods. It's not like they're just everywhere, just like walking down the street like your neighbor's a demigod. They're pretty rare, but they're all very aware of all these minute Greek myths and demigods because they're real. Hope has been running from town to town because she is a Sphinx, and so is her mother. And basically, at the beginning of her novel, a mother is killed, she doesn't know why, and now Hope is faced with the decision of whether to continue running or maybe create some roots of her own and dealing with the consequences of this. This book was super fast-paced, and I really liked the Greek mythology elements. I am a sucker for Greek mythology in any sort, and I thought this book did it really well. It had the addictive quality of like a Jennifer L. Armentrout book. Like, you just kind of love it, you know what I mean? You're just like, it made me feel like how I felt when I read Sweet Evil or the Lux series. It's just super addicting, and you're just like, yes, let me read on. Hope as a character, though, is definitely not a pushover. I liked her. She was smart, she was intelligent, she made good decisions, which I also appreciated. So I ended up giving this book a 4 out of 5 stars, and I'm really excited to talk about it more during our live show this Friday. And the very last book I read this month was The School for Good and Evil by Sinan Shanini, and I loved this book. This is a middle grade novel that basically there's a school for good and a school for evil, and kids are trained to be in fairy tales. They're just kind of sorted into houses. Like, the kids in the evil school learn how to like become evil witches, and then the princesses in the good school learn how to like be beautiful and stuff. It's so good. This novel follows 2 characters that they feel like they're sorted into the wrong school. Agatha thought she was evil and she gets put into the school for good, and Sophie, who thinks she's good, is put in the school for evil. And this book definitely commentates on basically the idea that good and evil isn't just black and white. There's lots of areas of gray, and it's super fun. I loved the fairy tale elements in the school setting. I flew through this book. I just thought it was adorable, and I really can't wait to read the sequel. I ended up giving this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was just so fun, and I really want them to make like a movie out of this because I really liked it. But yeah. Alrighty guys, that is my February wrap up. Let me know down below some books you read this month in the month of February. I would love to know. And I will see you guys soon with another video soon. Goodbye!